At this time, we're going to be having military honors presented. Please, those of you who are active duty or who have served in the military, please during taps, you'll salute, hand salute. If not, please during taps, those who are not part of the military will place your hand over your heart.
Bugler, sound taps. Sir. Mayor, on behalf of the President, great האיש אשר לא הלך בעצת רשעים ובדרך חטאים לא עמד ובמושב לצים לא ישב. כי אם בתורת אדוני חפצו ובתורתו יהא יומם ולילה והיה כשתול על פלגי מים אשר פריו ייתן ביתו ועל גולגו ייפול וכל אשר יבשר יצליח. לכן הרשעים כי אם כמוץ אשר תדפנו רוח על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט וחטאים בעדת צדיקים כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים ודרך רשעים טובת.
We gather together today as a dear family and friends of Selig Strassman. As we mourn his loss, must also celebrate the full, rich life he led. Death has taken our beloved cell. Friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For his love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For his companionship which we shared along life's path and which still continues with the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and his mind which brought us joy and happiness, and now become a precious heritage of the Spirit. For all these and more, God, we give you our praise. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'nai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai nevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people well acquainted with grief was the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. But the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and there is strength in faith. With Job we say Adonai natan, God you have given. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Poem entitled My Hereafter. Do not come when I am dead, to sit beside a low green mound or bring the first daffodils, because I love them so. For I shall not be there, you cannot find me there. I will look up at you from the eyes of little children. I will bend to meet you in the swaying boughs of bud-thrilled trees, and caress you with this passionate sweep of storm-filled winds. I will give you strength in your upward tread of everlasting hills. I will cool your tired body in the flow of the river. I will warm your work-glorified hands with the glow of the winter fire. I will soothe you into forgetfulness, the drop of the rain on the roof. I will speak to you out of the rhymes of the masters, and I will dance with you in the lilt of the violin, and make your heart leap with the bursting cadence of the organ. I will flood your soul with the flaming radiance of the sunrise. I bring you peace in the tender rose and gold of the after sunset. All these have made me happy. They are part of me, and I shall become a part of them. He's achieved success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of little children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who has left the world better than he found it, whether by an improved copy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul. Was never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it. Was always looked for the best in others and given the best he had. Whose life was inspiration, whose memory a benediction. A poem entitled To My Father. A giant pine, magnificent and old, stood staunch against the sky, and all around shed beauty, grace, and power. Within its fold birds safely reared their young. Beneath was gentle, and the cooling shade gave cheer to passers-by. Its towering arms a landmark stood erect and unafraid, as if to say, fear naught from life's alarms. But it had fell one day where it had dauntless stood, was loneless and void. But men who passed paid tribute said, to know this life was good. It left its mark on me, its work stands fast. And so it lives, such life no bonds can hold, this giant pine, magnificent and old. Adonai ro'i lo echsar bina desha yarvitzeni, amen minot ha'genachaleni. Please join me now in the familiar words of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters, and restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Our tradition describes three aspects of living that a person should strive for. Ayin tov, a good eye, Lev tov, a good heart, and Chaver tov, a good companion. Each of us hopes to live a full life, one that appreciates the beauty and aesthetics of our world, one that enables us to share our values with loved ones. Selig Strassman led such a life. He was born on June 24th, 1927, to May and Sam Strassman in New Kensington, Pennsylvania, and then raised in Scranton. Sel always loved Pennsylvania Dutch hard pretzels, a throwback to his early years. Selig was one of 4 children born to his parents, but a brother Alan did not survive infancy. Sel was raised with his 2 younger sisters, Anita and Lorraine. Sel had a loving family, but a difficult childhood due to the Depression and the neighborhood bullies who weren't fond of Jews. Sel was a skitty little kid, and he was happy to learn to box. But Sel quickly distinguished himself with his keen intellect and fierce determination. Sel graduated from Central High School and then served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. And later, in the U.S. Naval Reserve, Sel attained the rank of Lieutenant Commander in the Medical Corps. Sel graduated from the University of Scranton in 1948. He admired the Jesuit educators he met there. Then he studied at Hahnemann University Medical College in Philadelphia, where he graduated in 1951. Sel did his first year of residency in Syracuse, New York, and then moved here to Cleveland to finish his residency at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. Sel became a founding member and president of Pediatric Center of Greater Cleveland. He taught, lectured, and chaired countless committees at area hospitals. Sel was an associate clinical professor of pediatrics at Case Western Reserve School of Medicine, an executive committee chairman, pediatric clinical facility at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. Some of Sel's fondest professional years were spent as head of Division of Pediatrics and Newborn Nursery at Marymount Hospital. Even to recent days, Sel always lit up when he saw a baby. And Sel was also a recognized expert in adolescent medicine. In addition to all of Sel's professional accomplishments, he was a man of many varied interests. Throughout his life, Sel possessed an ayin tov, a good eye. He was attuned to details, whether it be a delicious meal or a beautiful flower. Sel loved good food and wine and had a wonderful wine cellar. Sel and Faye visited over 70 wineries and loved traveling throughout California's wine country and collecting labels from bottles of wine he enjoyed. Once, Sel was with Jim and Debbie in Ann Arbor visiting Debbie's sister for the Michigan-Ohio State football game. They ate at a restaurant that was downstairs, and on the way down, they had empty wine bottles on display. Sel convinced the kids to swipe some of those bottles on the way out so he could use the labels for his collection. They gave him grief for many years for that. Sel and Faye hosted tons of dinner parties and were part of a gourmet club with 5 other couples. The rule was that you had to make something that nobody else had made before. Of course, Faye did most of the cooking, but Sel became famous for his crepe Suzette made tableside. It was his specialty. Sel was also an avid gardener. He was proud of his shade garden and greenhouse in Beechwood and then Chagrin Falls. Sel liked to go out to plant more trees in the woods. He knew what bloomed when and had beautiful things blooming all year round. Sel took great pride in his garden. He made the kids weed for their chores when they were young, and they all hated it. Ginny's childhood friend Skip remembers how Sel got the boys to move a big rock he wanted for the garden. They felt like they were digging for hours. The first time Kevin came to pick up Nancy for a date, Sel was out working the yard, pushing a wheelbarrow in his big hat and big work pants and boots. Kevin thought he was the gardener. And he quickly asked, is Nancy here? And so inside. As Nancy and Kevin left, Nancy called out, "Bye, Dad!" And Kevin was so embarrassed. There was a lovely garden at the Wiles where Sel and Faye were living. And Nancy took Sel out to sit in the garden, and he enjoyed spending time talking to the gardener. Sel also displayed his good eye, his attention to detail, and his other interests, such as collecting model trains, which reminded him of the steam locomotives he grew up watching as a kid, or studying American history, or the chess sets he collected. He taught his kids to play chess when they were very young. Sel also enjoyed playing tennis with Faye. We all know who was the better athlete. Sel possessed a lev tov, a good heart. This was apparent in his love of his family and his friends. Sel's children remember waiting for their dad to come home late from work so he could read them Winnie the Pooh or Wind in the Willows. Sel was one of 3 partners in his practice, and every year one would take a month off to be with their family. Before it was popular, Sel took the family camping cross country. They traveled in the station wagon, pulling the camper behind, along with the dog, either Fergie the Mutt or one of his many Labrador retrievers. Nancy, Carol, Jim, and Bob have wonderful memories of trips, going out west and visiting the Rocky Mountains, Grand Tetons, Yellowstone, Great Sand Dunes, and Glacier National Parks, or traveling up to Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and visiting Acadia National Park and the White and Green Mountains. When the girls were away at college, Jim and Bob enjoyed these adventures with their parents. Jim believes these trips with his father instilled a love of the outdoors in both him and his brother, and he passed this down to his sons, Alec and Derek Heath. Sel also passed his strong work ethic down to Jim, which Sel inherited from watching his father work in the store. Sel liked photography and took lots of pictures of their trips and made slideshows for family and friends. But most of all, he liked to take pictures of his beautiful Faye. Sel and Faye also traveled with their dear friends, Judy's parents, Maggots, and the Goldsteins. They took local trips to Conneaut Lake Park or just sharing cabana number 78 at Vanderhaven Swim Club. To be Sel's friend was to be a friend for life. Sel and Faye also enjoyed traveling for his conferences to Miami, San Francisco, New Orleans, and Chicago. Sel enjoyed fishing with his family at Lake Nipissing in Canada, or with his old friend Jack Moran. Sel was certainly involved at Park Synagogue, on the board of trustees, and as head of the usher corps. Sel was a role model and mentor to so many people. He was always willing to help out, personally and professionally. Twin brothers Richard and Robert once came to the Strassmans for a holiday meal as students from Case Hillo. They remained close with Sel for the rest of their lives. Alec and Derek Heath enjoyed going on the Cuyahoga Valley train with their papa Sel. He always wanted to teach him things. Sel was always learning, teaching. He stressed reading and education to his children. And as Jimmy puts it, well, the girls listened. As many people say, they just don't make doctors like him anymore. Sel's children run into people, and they hear his last name, or they see Jim's face. They ask him, "You are Dr. Strassman's son or daughter." Sel had former patients who brought their children to him. He made a difference in the lives of so many people. And finally, Sel shared his life with his Chaver Tov, or Chavara Tov, his beloved, lifelong companion, Faye. They were a beautiful and devoted couple. Sal and Faye met at Hahnemann Hospital on Christmas Eve when she, a student nurse, called for a resident, and Sal appeared. He told me she was the only nurse who ever spoke back to him. They were married in Syracuse, New York on March 15, 1953, and shared 69 wonderful years together until her death just 6 months ago. It's hard to believe that Sal even lasted that long without Faye. Now they are together once again. A special thank you from the family to Sel's devoted caregivers, Linny, C.V., Jayana, and Shauna, and the staff at Wiles and Vinny Hospice. Sel was a true patriarch, and his legacy will live on through his family, through his loving children, Nancy and Kevin, Carol, Jim and Debbie, Bob and Lisa of blessed memory, and his devoted grandchildren, Alec and Jess, Derek, Heath, and Kim. Through his brothers and brother-in-laws and sister-in-law, Alan and Don, and remember Joan of blessed memory, and all his nieces and nephews, Gary, Ken, Brian, Sharon, Linda, and Dan, and all his friends and the many students he mentored over the years. May Sel's memory continue with us as we grow in life. May we honor his memory through our deeds and our words, always upholding the finer things in life, generosity of spirit, and courage to continue to live life to the very fullest. Zecher Sadik Livracha. May the memory of Selig Strassman be a blessing. Let us all say Amen. Let us pause for a moment of silence to each remember Sel in our own hearts.
Since I spoke at the Faye's funeral, I feel like I have to say something about Sel. Because I don't want to be unforgiven by Sel, and if you know Sel, you don't want to be unforgiven by Sel. It's not an easy to continue love with that burden. I think Faye actually accepted and adopted me first, and then she convinced Sel to give me a chance. And he did give me a chance. And if you know Sel, it wasn't easy to win Sel over. He was very intelligent, smart man, and he was very critical man. He analyzed everything, and that critical approach he carried through his entire life, in his medical profession, in his life as a Jew. He was proud and very observant Jew from his early upbringing, and I would say he was very critical Jew. He loved God, but at the same time he argued with God through his entire life, and he was critical of God very often, and at times, and I think probably very often, he was angry at God because for the slaughtering of millions of Jews during the war, number one. And number two, and I had a conversation with him about, he was really angry at God for that God allowed Carol to suffer through her entire life. He could not accept and understand the that verdict, that destiny that God allowed to happen to her beloved daughter. He loved his children, obviously. I don't know how often he complimented you, because he was really not easy person to compliment. As I said, it wasn't easy to win him over. But I think deeply inside, he had that amazing passion for you guys, for his children. He had, as Rabbi Sharon said, he has multiple interests. He loved history, he loved politics, he loved art, he loved life, and he really wanted to enjoy life as much as he can. And as I said, because he was a very critical man, his first impulse would never to agree with you. And if you start talking with Sel, it was never a small chat. Once he sucked you into his network, that was like 20 minutes, the least, the conversation. And it would go back and forth, and he would argue with you, he would offer his point of view. And even at the end of the conversation, even if he would agree with you on a small points, on a big picture, he still would not agree with you and be convinced that he was right. I think he won a big lottery ticket when he met Faye, because she was enormous part of his life, and she changed him, I think, because if you remember Sel, he was a big man with an imposing physical stature. He had a low, booming voice, and he looked a little bit intimidating when you start talking to him, because he was really kind of dominating you. But he would listen to you, and he would give you a chance to express your opinion and try to convince him, most of the time unsuccessfully, as I said. He was very generous in spirit. He told me that when he was practicing medicine, when he was a pediatrician, very often he would treat Jewish Orthodox families with multiple children for free because they could not afford to pay him. He loved being a pediatrician because he loved children, and as I said, because he was so angry and upset that so many Jewish children died during the war. He felt almost personal responsibility to care for children and to save children and to add to their well-being. I was surprised when Faye left us first, because he was more fragile than she was at the end of their lives. And when I came to the Wilds to see Faye and Sel, he was in a chair, of course, watching TV. He loved watching TV and listening to the news. And Faye was very fragile already at that time. And the nurse had to prepare her even that I would be able to talk to her. And while I was waiting, I talked to Sel, and of course the typical conversation with Sel, jumping from one topic to another, what mostly interested him, of course. He wanted to talk about. And then I was able to talk to Faye a little bit. She was in bed already because she was too weak to get out. And even at that state of her fragile being, she was still talking about Sel, that she's concerned about him, she's afraid how much longer he will be able to live. And as I said, I was really surprised that Sel outlived his beloved Faye for 6 months. But I'm sure now they will reunite, and Faye will be continuing cooking for him because he loved her cooking so much. And I know, and I think that everybody who knew that amazing couple who brought so much light into lives of many of us, we will continue to remember them. Yeah. Malei Rachamim, Shochein B'Meronim, Ametzemen Chanechon Ha'am, Tachat Kanufei Ashkin B'Mahalot Kadoshim Udvarim, Kazogar V'Rakia Mazgerim, At Nishmavat Selig ben Shmuel b'Matal Shagalav Leolamo Bagad Hadranat Kagay Manuchato Anabal Marahim Astir Raigo Beseter Kanav Kakaleholamim Vetitzuror Betzror Chaim et Nishmato Adonai Chonachalato Vayanoach Bershalom Al Mishkavo V'Omar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Selig Simon Strassman, known in our tradition as Selig ben, son of Shmuel B'Matal, who has entered eternity. God have mercy, let him find refuge in eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. Pause for a moment as we lower the coffin. Almost answer the summons, return to the source of being. We lose our hold on life when our time has come, as a leaf falls from the bough when its day is done. The deeds of the righteous enrich us all as the fallen leaf enriches the soil beneath. The dust returns the earth, but the spirit lives on with God. Like the stars by day, our beloved dead are not seen by mortal eyes, but they shine on forever. Theirs is eternal peace. Let us be thankful for the companionship continues in our hearts, in our minds, and with God. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind, the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. We are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us, as we remember him. our tradition to place some earth on the coffin. It's the last act of devotion we can show the cell. We ask the family to come forward first.
Grandchildren, other family members.
Now, anyone else can come up after if you like to place some earth in the coffin.
We're gonna just immediate family right now, and then everybody else.
Immediate family, and then we'll just let anyone else come up after the cottage.
We're gonna put it back. We're gonna have the cage over.
Gadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba v'yamad rach hirute v'yamlich malchute v'chayachon v'yomechon uv'chayedacho beit Yisrael v'agala uv'izman kari v'yimru amen Yehi shemei rabba mivarach le'olam u'lamei amaya Yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yitfa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalel v'yithalal shemei dekudesha v'rihu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'yama v'yimru amen Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen Oseh shalom b'roma, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all bereaved among us. Let us all say, Amen. Lech ki shalach Adonai, go your way, for God has called you. Lech Adonai yemach, go your way, may God be with you. V'alach levanecha sikecha kavod Adonai yasvecha. May your riches go before you. May the memory of your life ever be present in the hearts and minds of those who have known you and loved you. And may the glory of God receive you. Amen. This concludes our service. The Strassman family receiving visitors at Flower Restaurant at 34205 Chagrin Boulevard in Moreland Hills, the corner of Chagrin and Psalm. Immediately following services until 6 p.m. this evening. Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to ask that we open up an aisle right here. It's called a shur. It's the aisle of consolation. Some people to my right, some people to my left, facing one another. And it's the idea that the family walks not alone, but surrounded by other family and friends. I'll bring that to you. So you're going to head back towards the cars. members, grandchildren, will pass between family and friends. This time services are concluded. Anyone wishing to place earth within the grave, you're welcome to at this time. Otherwise, services are concluded, folks.
What I was going to tell you.